Committee meeting's to order. Bob, are you with us?
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and open up the Parks and Rec Committee meeting then. Hand it off to you, Amy.
Would you guys like me to provide a quick synopsis?
Is that on?
Yeah.
Amy?
All right. I said, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Ms. Garten, would you want me to provide a quick synopsis of the equipment?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I think that'd be good.
Okay, so in May of 2021, council was approached about saving some of the old playground equipment at Saul Alexander Playground. They did decide to hold the monkey bars, the merry-go-round, and the swings. The Alston Middle School has agreed to accept the merry-go-round and install a sign recognizing Mr. Saul Alexander. They have declined accepting the other two pieces. Very recently, we had an issue with the other set of swings that are at Saul Alexander Playground that we left. They were accidentally damaged. So we're requesting that the other set of swings that we can use those to repair the existing swings that were left. That does leave the monkey bars. There has been a request by council to allow these to be donated to a nonprofit group, Somerville Juneteenth. And so I just need some direction from council.
Okay. We've had some problems along with the way, apparently misunderstanding with some people about how this was going to be done. When we passed it, we initially to give them the other artifacts that wasn't used for the Alston Middle School merry-go-round. We said we would give it to, has to be an institution and not private property.
That's correct.
And I think Ms. Saylor didn't quite understand that. She's trying to use her private property as a place for it, which is against our legal department and what we wanted done. So I've talked to her about it 2 or 3 times. So this has been dragging on for a long period of time. One of the things I was going to suggest to the Parks and Recreation Committee and to the council is that I think it's time for us to set a deadline for the receipt of this material, if they can find the proper place for it. Otherwise, I think we need to close the books on it because it's been dragged out too long. So that's what I would recommend to the council. Is Bob available? If
No,
not,
he isn't.
that's what I would recommend.
So you want to put a deadline on to when to donate this if we have a nonprofit? Because Juneteenth is, are they a nonprofit?
Well, it's a little confusing, but anyway, the memorial that the Olson Heritage Foundation is in favor of, and what I'm in favor of, and everybody seems to be in favor of, is honoring Mr. Saul Alexander at Alston, at the old Alston High School location, which we are doing that. Then the request is made by Ms. Saylor and her daughter for the additional pieces that we didn't use. And we said we would let them have that if they could find a place for it. That would be responsible, like an institution. At some point in time, she mentioned to me that there was an institution that she felt would take the pieces. And I said, great, get that information. I actually wrote her an email and told her to get that information to G.W. Parker. And if he approved it, then we could do that, but she never did. So I think now we're at the point where we need to make a decision. This has been dragging on too long. I would say, give her 30 days maybe to find this organization that she said she'd found is willing to take it. And if it's not done in that period of time, then I think we'd have to probably destroy that material where it couldn't be a damage to the town, cut it into pieces or whatever, and just get rid of it.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
If I may, Ms. Brown, just for clarification for me, I understand the request for the equipment. I understand the request that Austin will utilize one of them. I'm kind of confused on breaking down the other equipment and building. If I'm reading what's there, something out of it to go somewhere. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm kind of stunned as to why we're going any further than we are.
yeah, well,
I'd give them the merry-go-round, and if there's something else that the school wants to honor Saul Alexander, I think that's great. It seems to me this has been months. It's time to let this die a happy death.
yeah, what happened, we met with the principal, Amy and myself, and she's willing to do the merry-go-round and make it permanent so no kid could get hurt on it, and put up a sign on like Saul Alexander. There was a request made around by the sailors to use artifacts to do an art piece, to turn it into art. That's how we got here. And I think we've told her numerous times, and Amy has too, we're singing off the same page, that we have got to have something that the town from any future liability. And so this has been going on since what, May?
Yes, sir.
So I think it's time to, have our legal department contact her and says, you've got 30 days to get us the name of an institution that's going to receive this stuff and be responsible for it and indemnify the town, else we're just going to have to dispose of it.
Yeah, I've signed on and I agree.
That's my thoughts. I'm interested, if you got some suggestion, that's fine. But I think that's, that way, I don't think she'd be able to say we didn't give her a chance to find a spot for us. So,
I agree. And Amy, is that just something our committee needs to decide, or do we need to send that up to full council for?
Council initially voted on it, so I believe it probably needs to go to full council.
All right. Well, I guess we need to vote on sending it to council.
yeah, so I need a motion and we'll send it to council if we agree on the committee.
Are you making that motion?
I'd rather you make it.
And I'll second that.
I'll second.
Aye.
It's moving in a second. We'll move it to council.
Is that all you have?
Was Bob still not here?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
I think he's in harmony with what we're doing. I've talked to him about it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Brown, you have a motion
I'll
to,
second that
There's
motion.
nobody. Does anybody hear
all
me?
in favor? Aye.
Hello?
I'll call to order the regular meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee. Is Councilman Jackson online? I'm confused.
Yes. Hello?
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Well, first item on the agenda, Ms. Schuler.
Yes, sir. Petition by Mary Mead Associates Limited Partnership to annex a portion of Berkeley County TMS number 232-0002-052, a total of 2.54 acres, located off Mary Mead Drive, currently zoned PDMU, Plan Development Mixed Use in Berkeley County, and will be zoned GB, General Business, upon annexation into the town of Somerville's municipal limits. This would be in Council District 2. Planning Commission held a public hearing and made a recommendation for approval at their meeting on November 15th, 2021.
Ms. Schuler, is this going to be a brand new TMS number, or is it going to become part of an adjacent piece of property already in the town?
It will become its own parcel.
Not that it necessarily matters at this point, but does the property owner have a specific use for it?
Yes, sir. It will be an off-site pond for property along Berlin G. Myers Parkway that's being developed as an apartment complex.
That's already in the town,
Yes, sir.
but it's going to be a separate parcel from that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Don't know if Councilman Jackson can hear or has any questions, or whether Councilman Jenkins has questions or motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept this as written.
Well, we can either refer it to.
Refer it to council for full approval. Accept it to be approved by the committee and forward it to council for full approval.
I'll go ahead and second the motion because I'm really not sure whether Councilman Jackson can hear us. Any further questions, discussion, debate? If not, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye.
The next item on the agenda is ordinance to adopt a revised development impact fee ordinance for the town of Somerville. Planning Commission held a public hearing on October 18th, 2021, and adopted a resolution recommending approval with consideration of 2 changes at their meeting on December 1st, 2021. Those changes should have been included. For y'all. But I can
Mr.
detail-
Chairman, I would just have one question, Jesse, if I could. Since we are where we are now, could we not approve this for 2021? Are we not, am I incorrect in saying that we're trying to approve 2019?
No, what
Maintenance.
the changes that were suggested by the planning commission is the numbers used to develop to do the impact fees, to update them, were 2020 numbers, which, as we all know, were kind of
Correct.
not our normal numbers probably. And so the suggestion by the planning commission was to have the consultant go back and use 2019 numbers rather than the 2020 numbers, and get those and compare what the 2 numbers are to see if we're more comfortable with using the 2019 numbers instead of the 2020 numbers. And if y'all are in support of that suggestion from the planning commission, I can ask our consultant to do that. Y'all can table this and I can have him do that. He said it shouldn't take that much time to do that. It's really just plugging in the new numbers to the formula. And then we can have those 2 sets of numbers to compare.
Okay, so at least I knew what I was talking about, which is surprising. What I'm suggesting is we're 3 weeks away from 2021 ending. Why would we not use 2021 numbers, which I think are more appropriate than either 2019 or 2020?
He said he could also do that. It would just be a little bit more of a time frame because we'd have to wait to get those numbers. So either one, or we can look at all 3.
Well, separate from the issue of what year we use, I guess, as a baseline, you used the term, and I think in some of the written communications we've had, you use the term update. Well, I mean, what does that mean, update?
The state law requires us to update impact fees, at least look at them every 5 years. We don't have to change them,
Right.
but we do need to at least look at them every 5 years and update our study.
Okay. So are we making changes?
That is up to y'all.
Well, what's being proposed?
We didn't, well, Planning Commission recommended that we do make changes and do not discount any of our fees.
Okay.
But again,
Separate from Planning Commission, because they just recommend.
Mhm.
What is being proposed by staff? I understand we have to review it every 5 years. Is a recommendation from staff to look at it and do nothing, or is it a recommendation to do something?
I would say based on the numbers that we have in our CIP, we would probably need to do something to be able to support all of the expenses that we have in our CRP. But
Completely.
it is up to, obviously, it's council's decision whether y'all make the change or not.
Yeah, I would say that staff is not making a recommendation to you at this point. Right now, you are getting the information from Tischler and Associates for information. You all authorized this study, I think, back in 2018. Is that when it was originally started?
That was when we started it. Council did the full resolution for planning commission to look at it earlier this year.
Okay.
But yeah, it was,
So I guess the question that I have is the only change that planning commission is recommending that we not do discounts? Or is what is before us as far as impact fees different from what we have now?
it's different
How is it different?
because it's based on numbers from 2020 rather than numbers from 2015.
You wanting to know what these specific numbers are?
Absolutely.
That's in the study. I mean,
I want you to tell us what they are.
you mean, you want to know what the new proposed numbers are?
Right. Are we proposing decreasing impact fees or keeping them the same?
Again, that would depend on what you decide to discount them. If you don't decide to discount them, they would still probably be slightly higher. They would be slightly higher with these new numbers than they were in 2015.
And what do you mean by slightly higher?
I mean, it's not a humongous difference, except for the residential fees. Residential
Mhm.
fees are a good bit more.
Like a 5% increase, 10% increase?
I haven't done the percentage amount.
For example, the residential would go from, I believe, $1,135 to approximately $3,500. Is that what it is for
So,
residential?
I
If
mean,
we keep the same
I have
discount
a-
rate.
Yeah, I have a comparison chart. I wasn't because I wasn't sure if we really wanted to use the 2020 numbers. I didn't really want to send it to y'all and then you get a kind of, but for a single family home, the maximum allowable in 2015 would have been $2,475. With the 2020 numbers, the maximum allowable fee would be $7,043.
And right now they're how much?
Right now, with the discounts we have in place, different sheet, give me just a second. Right now, with the discounts we have in place, they're $1,135. If we keep the same discounts in place,
Mhm.
but use the new numbers, it would be $3,519.
So, I mean, it's really not about whether we use 2019 numbers, 2020 numbers, 2021 numbers. It's whether we have a 300% tax increase, a 500% tax increase, or a 700% tax increase.
Well, it's not a tax increase, it's a fee for development.
Okay. I don't have any more questions. If anybody's got a motion.
And just to clarify that the numbers we use determine what that maximum allowable fee is. So that's why those numbers are important.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm a builder.
Yes, sir.
If I walk in town hall tomorrow, I'm gonna pay $1,100 roughly for building permit plus other fees. Right?
1,135 for impact fee,
Plus other numbers.
plus whatever the building permit fee is. Yes.
After we vote, whatever we voting on, what am I gonna pay?
Well, that depends on what you decide to vote on. You can.
Right, but I don't know what
what-
I'm gonna vote on, because I hadn't learned one thing from what y'all just said.
Well, I
That was
think
intentional.
at this point, I think the purpose for bringing it before the Planning and Development Committee is really just to let you all know that Tischler and Associates has completed their report. So it's being presented to the Planning and Development Committee so that you all have access to the report. My recommendation would be for you all to perhaps defer this to another meeting, either another Planning and Development Committee, a workshop, a Finance Committee meeting, so that you all can have a more thorough discussion. And we will have,
The consultant is
right.
available for the January Planning and Development Committee meeting. He would have come tonight, but we didn't think we were quite ready for that type of in-depth discussion. I did email y'all these charts so you could play around with the discount fees and look at the comparison. So I mean, I did send that information to you, but I know it's kind of a confusing concept. So, but again, the numbers, what year we use makes a difference because that's what determines what that maximum allowable fee is based off of.
And if you'd rather us go back to the consultant, if you all decide that we want to go back to the consultant and use whether it's 19, 21, or a combination of the three, we can do that and then bring it back to you. And like I said, if you want to workshop it or defer it to a future finance committee meeting, we can certainly do that.
I would suggest that this is really not a planning and development issue. This is a tax and spend issue. So it really ought to go to finance committee and not this committee. That would be my suggestion.
Well, let's see if I understand what I understand. The legislature allows us to have impact fees as the town grows to offset the cost of providing services as the town grows. So it's not too much of a burden on those who have been here.
Correct. It is only for the impact fees only apply to new development.
New construction. Now, the thing is, the reason we are looking at 2021, 19, and these various years is we need to have the impact fees, but we don't want the impact fees to be too burdensome on the new homeowners and the new development that's coming in, that we are not competitive. But at the same time, we realize it's something that we need to do to be egalitarian in our views in dealing with building and providing the services. It's getting more and more expensive to provide those services over the years. It's much more expensive than it were 4 or 5 years ago. So if we use the impact fees and look at it with this way, I think we'll come up with the right decision.
Yeah,
Which areas we want to make.
Yeah, the reason the 2020 numbers, because a lot of it is based off of the number of calls that you have for public safety and that sort of thing. And so the reason 2020 numbers are, like I said, the reason residential went up a lot is because a lot of our 2020 numbers were almost all of them were calls from residences because a lot of businesses weren't open all of 2020 or were closed for part of 2020. So it wasn't the same distribution that we normally may have. And so that's why, one reason why that went up. So, and also we had a lot of calls just because of COVID-19 and all that, responding to folks for that reason as well. So that's why I said, that's why the Planning Commission recommended using the 2019 numbers, or if you want to use 2021, if you don't mind waiting a little bit longer to use those numbers. But obviously you have to wait till the end of the year to get those numbers. But that was where that suggestion came into play from the Planning Commission. And the reason they suggested it was because I asked our consultant, I was like, because when we were first looking at this, and he was telling me the numbers were going to be approximately the same. And then we switched to the 2020 numbers because it was taking longer than we thought. And so when I saw the new numbers, I was like, whoa, these are really different. Can you explain why these are different? And he explained the reasons, and he said that we may want to consider using 2019 or 2021. So that's that explanation. But I agree. I think it is more of a finance committee issue as well. We were the ones who had worked with them, so that's why I put it on our agenda.
I would tend to agree with Mr. McIntosh that this is, and yourself, that this is for the finance committee. But I think what I would ask is that we do include 2021,
okay,
which I would consider to be the more normal of the 3 years that we've been dealing with, and see where that takes us in the process.
Is everyone else okay with, do y'all need to vote on that, or I'm sorry, I don't know.
We need to move the issue from this committee somewhere. We can retain it. We can move it to full council. But I think Mr. Jenkins' motion is to move it to to the finance committee, which meets again, I guess, in January. If Councilman Jackson is not available, I will second that motion.
I'll second. Did you hear me?
And to include the
2021 numbers.
2021 numbers.
Mr. Jackson said he would like to use this one.
I mean, I will probably be higher impact fees, but that's fine. We'll let finance committee look at it. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I don't, the next item on the agenda is the ordinance to adopt a capital improvement plan for 2021 to 2026 for the town of Somerville. Planning Commission held a public hearing and adopted a resolution recommending approval with consideration of one change at their meeting on December 1st, 2021. And that change, just to clarify, was to include an inflation rate with the CIP.
And Ms. Schuler, if I'm understanding correctly, the capital improvements plan is something we have to have in order to have impact fees. Is that correct?
It goes along with impact fee ordinance.
And just as we're supposed to update, take a look at impact fees, we have to update our capital improvements plan.
Correct.
That's why these are being presented to us at the same time.
Yes, sir. We could have held this discussion together, but
Okay.
they're
So,
technically separate ordinances, so.
but when we adopt, and we have a current capital improvements plan,
We do.
and when we adopt a new one, which apparently we have to have if
Yes,
we're
sir.
gonna have impact fees. We could always get rid of impact fees and then we wouldn't even have to have a capital improvement plan. But if we adopt a new one, does the capital improvements plan obligate us to do anything?
No.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Schuler on the capital improvements plan?
Maybe a comment, not a question. I look at this and I've understood what you've said well, and it seems to me that regardless of how we use this and how we move forward and what steps we take, I'm going to suggest that council does not understand the suggested capital improvements plan as well as we should, and that we need to have some type of session with staff and council to bring council up to speed of what is included in the capital improvements plan, so that we have input on that before we go to approval or not, a vote to approve or not.
That's your motion.
Or Councilman Jenkins, would you be agreeable to also send this matter to Finance Committee in January?
I think, if I think we can have, I would like to send it to Finance Committee in January. If we have, I think it will be very difficult in January, because I don't know that we'll have, we have a new council member coming on. I don't know if we'll have time to have an on-site or off-site meeting to go through the capital improvements plan so that we understand what it is we're talking about and what it is we're voting on. I think it needs to be deferred, but I don't know if it can be accommodated.
I don't have any problem. I mean, the Finance Committee is the committee of the whole. It's all of us. If this committee moves it to the January Finance Committee, I certainly, as one council member, would not be opposed to then deferring it from that point. But this committee's got to do something with it. And, you know, if it's deferred or not deferred is not a huge deal to me personally, because I mean, I look at that list and know that half of those things are never going to happen. They're just words on a paper, but they can be used, for example, as a justification for an impact fee increase. So, I mean, I'm fine with just sending it to Finance Committee and then let the full council as the Finance Committee deal with it in January. But if we want to defer it and have a workshop or something on it, fine. I just don't think, I mean, I just look at several things on that list and know they're probably not happening in any of our lifetimes. Maybe once we get Mr. Touchberry on here, he's a little younger.
I'm happy with sending it to the Finance Committee. And
I'll second your motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
I call the Public Safety Committee. And Chief Wright is here to give us some information. I think we passed that concealed carry, the thing that was passed by the legislature September 18th, and tell us how we've been doing since that happened.
Yes, sir. Mayor, Council, Ms. Wallace. I was tasked by you, sir, back in August with the upcoming legislation that was going to be coming into place for open carry here in South Carolina. It was a committee that was devised at your direction of both myself, Parks and Recreation Director, Ms. Evans, obviously Councilman McIntosh, and Councilman Bailey. We have convened, discussed this matter, and myself and both Ms. Evans looking at the totality of circumstances and the fact that we have not had any matters of police action that have had to occur since the August passing of legislation, that there's a need to make any changes. Although it's at the behest, obviously, of council and the town's council to decide how they would like to proceed with that. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that the
Can you hear
council
me
has.
now?
Entertain any suggestions.
So where we are right now, Doug, since we have not had any incidences with this open carry, are you making a recommendation to the council?
I am. So the way the law reads now, and certainly I'm more than willing to discuss it with council with questions, but the way the law reads now is if you are concealed carry and you're open carry, if you're open carry, the same law applies as if you're concealed carry. So signage on buildings, any type of business can obviously ask that their employees not carry firearms. They can ask that there not be firearms on the particular premise, to include anybody who comes there with proper signage. But to look at the totality of the circumstances, you can't just look at facilities. You need to look at parks and playgrounds. So with that being said, obviously somebody walking in a park or a playground, open carry or concealed carry is much different than walking into a facility such as this building here, open carry or concealed carry. But the way I'm explaining it is the way the law, and not to become too convoluted, Councilman, the way the law reads at this time still is that if you are concealed, if you're open carry, you cannot carry a firearm into a complex, to include a courtroom, to include a place where there is any type of meeting such as this in a chambers, or if there was any other type of meetings that occur on different floors. There is signage on this building, if I'm not mistaken, explaining. There's not.
Nope.
Okay. Well, I was misinformed and I apologize.
At least I didn't see it when I walked in, Chief.
Okay.
There's
but-
on the main building. I don't
So,
think
and
on the-
and my point, Councilman Jenkins, is very much in line with what you're saying here. If the signage is there, that there's no concealed weapons allowed, that the same law applies for open carry. Although, if you're not in tune with the law and you don't take the time to read the law, you would not know that. But it is in text by statute that the law is the same for concealed weapons as it is for open carry. Myself and Ms. Evans' main concern was, and not to get too much in the weeds, but I think it's very important that we put it out there, is public events. And that's a different dichotomy of what we're talking about here, facilities. And I don't want to get too far, but if you want me to go into that, I can answer any questions and I can go into that next.
And go ahead, because I think we're trying to get as much information as we can.
Yes, sir.
on this.
So would you like to
Chief,
ask?
if I could.
Yes, please.
Just first. There was a point in time, and I can only account for a few buildings.
Sure.
Prior to the passage of this new law, that we had the signs that said no concealable weapons.
Right.
Since the passage of this new law, there's a new sign for buildings.
Correct.
And the only suggestion that I have, because I know there's all kind of complications when you go out to the park and different things, is that for buildings within the town of Somerville that we put, my suggestion is that we would have the new signs that are in place for open concealed carry
I
and
concur.
concealed carry to be on all buildings. And other than that, you're going to deal with events that come into the park. There's another way that you're dealing with that, as I understand it, through the permitting
Yes, sir.
process. That seems to me to be the simpler way for us to move forward.
Yes, sir. And I don't disagree with you. My main priority as your chief of police is not only the safety of the public, more importantly, is the safety of my fellow employees. So that's paramount to me. And I don't want to misguide the public into believing, and that's not my intent, that you could walk onto town property or into this building and complex and have an open or concealed weapon. Obviously, there is new signage that does apply for open concealed carry. It discussed the height of the sign. It's I think 13 inches, somewhere along that line. It's not something monstrosity of a sign,
Right,
like you'd have to have in a park, but it includes a silhouette on the sticker or the signage. And I do think that is something moving forward that you all should consider.
And I know I'm not on the committee, but Chief, as you stated earlier, we don't have to have a sign on this building at
Correct.
all
You do not.
for open or concealed weapons.
That is correct.
Because this is a meeting place of the governing body.
Yes, sir.
We don't have to have a sign at all in the building next door to make open carry or concealed carry illegal because it's the courthouse.
Correct.
So this really, what I think we're talking about is, maybe I don't want to name them individually, but there are a handful of buildings in town that the town owns that would require apparently one of these new signs. Is that?
That is correct. Yes, sir. Does that answer your question, Councilman Brown?
Well, in a sense,
sorry.
let me say this, Terry.
go ahead.
The thing about the sign makes sense because it tells people that, this is something that's prohibited when they enter the building. This is the same thing that's been going on with the concealed carry, right?
Sure.
Sure. So it's not a whole lot of a change. But I would hope that people would expect, that they come into a town building, that they might see a sign saying, look, we realize that the law has given you certain rights to carry your firearm, but please don't bring it in this building.
Sure.
That would be my view.
Yes, sir.
I think we need it on all buildings to let the public that don't understand the law see it.
That's correct.
Permit holders, I mean, they know the law. If someone were to come in that's not a permit holder, that's a completely different issue. And what would really be helpful, I think, for Ms. Evans, and probably you as well, Chief, is that the statute for open carry and concealed weapons, concealed carry and open carry, it bans open carry and concealed carry in this building, period.
Correct.
It bans open carry and concealed weapons next door, period. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if there's a sign, doesn't matter you have a permit. Somebody walks in here either open carrying or concealed carrying, I mean, they're gonna eat pavement. But the law also bans open carry and concealed carry at school athletic events.
That's correct.
College, high school, middle school, but it doesn't do it at non-school athletic events. If the legislature had just tweaked that, I don't even think we would have ever started this conversation.
It is a very difficult, yes, sir. It is a very difficult statute to understand, especially if you've operated an auspice of the concealed weapons permit, and they add in a few little lines. It can be convoluted for business owners, non-governmental entities to make that decision if they don't actually read the law.
And I guess what I'm saying, Chief, is I understand that the law and the law says you're not supposed to come here with the.
Can you hear me now?
So, and I understand that, but to err on the side of safety, it seems to me that on our buildings, putting up a sign to remind someone is not a bad idea. It's not an expensive idea. It's not a burdensome idea, and it's something that we ought to be willing to do on all of our buildings.
Yes, sir. And to that note, I agree with you both. You are correct, and we've been doing it that way for quite some time.
Yeah.
And I believe with you, Councilman McIntosh, as well, because that is, you're going strictly by the statute, which is the way it's been for many years. And Councilman Brown, as I answer your question about facilities, my concern when we first discussed this were events, particularly events that needed to have permits for them. And what we have, myself, Ms. Evans, have come together with the committee, and we've discussed, along with the assistance of Mr. Parker, is some verbiage for people who are trying to solicit for a permit from the town of Somerville for a special event. And we have completed that verbiage and have already, I think we've already got that in the process to put it into the electronic portal for anybody who's applying to be able to say, I do understand that I cannot have open concealed weapons or carrying on my property during this event.
And I think what we're suggesting, overall, I think, is that I think it's okay to warn people. Taking anybody's rights away to have a sign saying, you know, recommend kill. The same thing to conceal carry. Even private businesses, you know, you put on a moment, got a sign saying. I think in a sense that the law, people will, who run businesses or whatever, they'll put signs up to protect their business. But I think that now we have an obligation to our people, our employees, warning before they be a sign or whatever by legislation.
Yes, sir. And the last thing I'll say, unless there's any other further questions that I can answer, I think I was a little concerned. I think a lot of people were very concerned when this legislation came out, that it came upon the public very quick. And the fact that they were in session, it was voted upon, and all of a sudden we need to educate. More so, my concern was educating my police officers properly to how to engage with somebody and not violate their rights. And so we have trained them. SLED has put out videos. I explained that in August. And my main concern is not violating people's rights, citizens as police officers, and then obviously the public. And what I was afraid of was a knee-jerk reaction, if you will. And I'm glad we had enough time. I think 5 months has gone by to see what that measure would look like as aggregate. And we've had no calls of anything, which is a good problem to have. And I think that says a lot about how the town's moving forward, our community being educated and taking the time to become educated. And that's a good thing. I think during the Flower Town Festival, there were 2 people that were walking around open carry, and there were no incidents. Nobody even complained about the people. So just put that as a matter of context, sir.
Okay, committee members, what do you want to send to council?
Sir.
Committee members?
I'm not sure we need this, but I would say we send this to full council with a recommendation to put no concealable weapons signs on all town buildings.
Gentlemen, if I may recommend also to the verbiage for the permits, if I would suggest that you move that also to full council, if you would, sir. Or if it needs to be voiced, I just wanted to recommend.
Well, I don't know exactly what the verbiage is, but I'll recommend that we send to full council the verbiage recommended by the group appointed by the mayor for open events to be
Sure.
sent to council as well. I'll second that all.
Okay, we got a motion and a second, all in favor? All right, need a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Bailey, I just want to tell you, I appreciate your many years of service to the town and to the council.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Public Works.
That looks like we only have one update on Parkwood Drive Pond.
Yes, ma'am. So the outfall structure and outfall pipe was installed, is in place now. The aerator for the pond was installed and actually turned on Friday morning. Stormwater crews are working on Shepherd Street now, installing the pipe to get the water into the pond. I talked to Ryan today. Assuming we have good weather, next 4 to 6 weeks, it all should be completed. They're working in a close proximity to a lot of utilities and slowing the crews down, but we are making good progress. Like we've had good weather lately too. Any questions?
Okay, any other comments or questions for our committee?
Once the pond is operable, is there money budgeted or a plan for making it look better aesthetically?
Possibly. That's something Amy and I are going to talk about once it's done. I know Parks is going to, we actually have been talking about it. Parks is going to get more involved and do some pretty it up, if you will. So we probably plant it in the spring and get some better grass on it. Right now, this time of year, the grass doesn't look very good out there.
And I mean, I'll tell you the reason I ask is I remember when this came up for a vote to acquire the property. I mean, the understanding is that yes, it was going to be a, I'm going to say the wrong one, detention pond, whichever it is, but that it was also going to expand the park, expand Shepherd Park, and you can't ever win. You can never expect to win because obviously we have a lot of complaints about flooding in Shepherd Park area, but we also I got calls about why is the town buying private property? What's the town doing with it? And when my answer was, we're going to try to ease the flooding with the pond, but we're also expanding the park. I got more favorable responses from the park side than the pond side. But when you drive down Parkwood, you don't see a lot of room for any parkland. The pond appears to take up the entirety of the acreage. I don't think we knew when we voted on it. So I hope there's something that will pretty it up.
Amy and I have been talking about an idea. I think we'll present that to you sometime next year, early next year. I will tell you, we also put 1,250 bluegill in the pond Friday. We'll stock it with bass in the spring, so it will be an amenity for fishing.
Madam Chairperson. Kimmel? Yeah, speak.
Trying to pretty it up. GW.
I was out there on Friday for the Arbor Day celebration, and there has been several small trees planted already, and so it's starting to take shape. But I was talking to Amy a little bit more out there and some ideas that she has for maybe, people being able to walk their dogs up there and having a nice little trail to walk around.
Yeah, the Parks Department and Planning Department planted 41 trees out there around the perimeter of the pond last week.
Let me ask you a question. Tell us what you're doing to make sure that there's not a safety issue with this big pond, that kids won't want to jump in there and go swimming and that sort of thing.
Well, we have the similar issue in Robinwood, Mr. Brown, and we never had a problem with it. But there's a lot of traffic through there, so it'll be a lot of eyes on that pond all the time.
Because the one in Robinwood now is sort of set apart from the houses, so people just can't get there as easy as they can to that pond. And it's a much bigger pond over there in Parkwood too, which we need, but
And all over town, that we have over 800 ponds throughout the town of Somerville. And I don't think rarely do I hear of a problem with somebody drowning in a pond. And they're all over the place. And the slope on the side of the pond is gentle enough somebody can crawl or walk up the slope.
even if they're a kid,
Probably more so if they're a kid, yeah.
kid.
Easier than I could.
Yeah,
So
well,
I
thank-
have.
Anything, any other questions, comments? I guess that's it.
I would move that we adjourn.
All right, all in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
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 Adjourn.
Finance Committee.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. You have we're 5 months into this fiscal year, in November. Again, our major part of our revenue collection will be latter part of this month and January and February with property taxes. For November, we brought in just under $1.2 million in revenue this month. Our expenditures totaled about $3 million for a excess of expenditures over revenue of just under $2 million. For as far as our detail of our revenue, property taxes totaled just under 380 year to date for almost $1.3 million. Licenses and permits about 260, and for year to date 3 million. Courts is it took in about 24,000 year to date, almost 140,000. State revenues, which I think 80 subdivisions was the biggest category there. Just under 500,000 at 488. Year to date, $1 million, just under $1.4 million. Miscellaneous revenues was minor at 37, almost 37,000, and year to date at 300,000. Our total revenues again is just under $1.2 million. Impact fees, we took in just under 7,000 for residential impact fees. Year to date, almost 57,000. Commercial, about 7,500. Year to date, almost 48,000. Questions on either of those? Hospitality tax, we took in almost 400,000 in November. Year to date is about 2 million, just over 2 million. I did look at last year's numbers for hospitality, and it is trending over what last year was. So I was happy about that. Stormwater, November revenue was about 64,000. Expenditures 140,000. Year to date 79,000 for revenue, and expenses about $1.4 million. I am going to work on tweaking this report with input from y'all and certainly Ms. Wallace to maybe add a little more data points that may be beneficial to y'all. Any other questions, comments?
Authorization to reallocate $13,000 from CDBG funds originally allocated $448,337 for rental mortgage assistance in order to install Wi-Fi and a camera system at Doty and Wassamasaw Parks for accessibility.
I'll make a motion that we approve this, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
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 Opposed, likewise.
Aye.
Ayes carry.
Authorization for the town administrator to enter into an agreement with Clemson University for Stormwater Consortium membership. Membership cost is $35,000 annually. Funds to come from Stormwater Fund. The request from the Public Works Department.
I'll make a motion that we pass this.
I'll
Second.
Motion made, second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Ayes, carry.
Authorization to amend the purchase order to Vic Bailey Ford for 2 Ford F-250s for the Parks and Recreation Department from $62,673 to $69,495 due to an increase in the state contract price to be paid from lease purchase proceeds. The Finance Committee previously approved that purchase order at the November meeting.
Motion.
Make a motion, we approve that additional expense.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes, carry.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Municipal Emergency Services in the amount of $63,900.40 for the purchase of 20 complete sets of structural firefighting gear. This is a budgeted operating expense from the fire department.
Mr. Mayor, I would move authorization of the purchase order.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes, carry.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Vic Bailey Ford in the amount of $43,561 for the purchase of a 2022 Ford F-250 van or Ford 250 van. Funds to come from lease purchase proceeds for the fire department.
I make a motion that we approve this authorization, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes, carry.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Dominion Energy in the amount of $30,366 to be paid from hospitality tax non-capital equipment to convert overhead lines to underground for the area of Hampton Street, Rutherford Street, and Charleston Street. Request from the Public Works Department.
I'll make a motion, we approve this.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes, carry.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Performance Automotive Group for 1 Dodge Durango police vehicle on state contract totaling $33,395. The funding source is from the American Rescue Plan budget for Crisis Intervention Team. Request from the Police Department.
Mr. Mayor, I would move authorization of the purchase order.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, motion made and second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes, carry.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Performance Automotive Group for 2 Dodge Durango police vehicles on state contract totaling $62,724. The funding source is from the American Rescue Plan budget for Crisis Intervention Team. Request from the Police Department.
Mr. Mayor, I move authorization of the purchase order.
I'll
Second.
second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion carried.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to move into executive session to discuss legal and contractual matters related to town-owned property at 118 West Richardson Avenue.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, motion made that we go into executive session, discuss legal matters related to property on 118 West Richardson Avenue. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by raising the right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. The ayes carry. We're going to executive session.